Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Testa. I am the VP of Art Relations here at Zildjian. Um, Excited about today because this is our next episode of digging a little bit more deep into Zildjian Live and the performances that were occurred. Today, what we found was that a lot of people are very interested in what's going on with Zildjian Live. They liked it. They liked the performances. It's been very successful from what you guys have been telling us, but you've been asking for more stuff. So what we decided to do was take two pairings of artists. In this particular case, it's Ash Soan and Stanton Moore, and uh, dig a little deeper into what the performance is and get more educational based. So what in this episode we have Stanton Moore interviewing Ash Soan about Ash's performance at Zildjian Live. And so Stanton and I will be kind of questioning Ash about what he did, how he did it, why he did it. And we're hoping that this will take your level of enjoyment for the performance that Ash did to another level, because then you'll have a better understanding of how he did it. So with that, I am going to, we're going to dig a little bit into a little snippet. Let's first watch a little snippet of Ash Soan performing his performance at Zildjian Live 2020. And then right after that, we'll bring Stanton and Ash on and get into it. Looking forward to it. Check it out. That was another great performance there, Mr. Ash Soan. So happy to have both of you guys, both Stan and Ash here. Ash, that performance is just outstanding, and I can't wait to dive into this, but I just want to give a little setup here. We're happy everybody's here. What we're going to do today is similar to what we have done in the Stanton episode, but we're just going to have now reverse it so that now Stanton will be talking to Ash about what he performed and what he played. And we're going to get real in-depth into his style and his performance and break it down a little bit. But what's really cool is, so everybody knows that you can find, if you should check out the Zildjian Learning Zone, which is a new section on the Zildjian site. And there's a whole section, kind of a learn the music aspect that we're doing now, where you'll be able to take the tune and see it at slower speeds and actually be able to see it, the transcription of it, and they do it at like a 50% speed, 70%, and then 90%. And it's really cool to really break down and see exactly what Ash is playing on every single note. So you can micro-analyze it, Ash. And then there's also PDF translations that you can download. And there's additional interview footage with Ash and I believe Mike Dolbear is doing that interview, which will be very cool. And then as a Z Club member, if you sign up, you get some limited time special purchase offers throughout the year, and you get nice little like ahead of the curve insights on different things that we're doing. So, okay, now that all the homework is done there, let's get into it here a little bit. So, again, welcome Ash, welcome Stanton.
Thank you.
Let's.
Thanks, Joe.
I'm going to hand it over a little bit to Stanton to start this off, because I know he's anxiously chomping at the bit to get into this. So, so Stanton, go ahead, man. Let's start this.
I've literally been waiting for this moment for, it's now about a year, because Ash and I we hung together for a while before this filming, and we got to talk about it at length, and just about the gravity of the situation and being invited there to play, and the opportunity that we had. We've talked a little bit about this prior in my section, but you know, to be invited, to be thought of, first of all, is an honor, and then to be there and realize that there's going to be a lot of great drummers there, but there's also going to be a lot of great drummers watching, and you're just like, what do you do? Like, and you know, Ash, we talked about it, and you know, I keep remember just being like, man, just be yourself, just do you, and it's going to be so amazing. And your performance was amazing, killer, so great, and so I have so many questions, and of course, you know, I know everybody is dying to hear about that fill, and we're gonna get to that. So we're gonna build up to that. We're getting to that. So I want to start off with some groundwork questions, you know, because these are things that we talked about. It's like, so how long did you have the song? Like, how did you have a week to prepare, 2 weeks to prepare? Like, how was the song delivered to you? Did it have demo drums on it? Like, let's talk about that. Like Sput sent you the tune, right? And
that's right. And he sent it. I think he sent it like I want to say it was Christmas Eve or something like that. It was, you know, it was a really sort of classic sort of Sput thing. And then I think I got the version to play to. So, you know, we got the initial version, which was the track and what his idea, he thought that it would be a good arrangement, etc. And an idea of the groove. I kind of talked to him about some of the grooves that I really like. Halftime shuffle, of course, came up, and sort of go-go type beats came up. So he had that in his mind. So the initial idea, I'm pretty sure, came through at like Christmas Eve. And then I think it was New Year's Eve, I got a version to jam to, which is the band minus the drums. So from New Year's Eve until we shot it, so however many weeks that was when I really kind of had enough time to sit down and work with the track and figure out what I was going to play in that gap.
Yeah, Stanton, something you don't know is that I had to pull a little teeth to get Ash to agree to do this.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Like he was like, oh, you don't want me to do this. You know, I'm like, what are you talking about? Wouldn't ask you if I didn't want you to do it. He's like, yeah, but that's not my thing. Like, I just want to, I go, that's what we want you for. Just do your thing.
Right. And we did discuss that a little bit. Like, we were meeting every morning for coffee, and, you know, we had discussed, he's like, why would they want me on this thing? It's like, because you're one of the most musical, most recorded drummers of our time right now, and drums are not always about chops and flurries and licks. Sometimes people need to see, oh, this is what a drummer who makes a living playing the drums on hit records. You know, Ash, you put your pants on just like every other drummer, one leg at a time. But when you put your pants on, you make hit records.
Well, hopefully there's some more around the corner. But I mean, you know what I was talking about really, Joe, and Stanton, what we talked about too, was historically drum events are usually about people's technique. It usually is a priority on those things. So that's why I thought, well, I'm going to be at the bottom of the list, because that's not my forte. Is speed and technique is something that I very really rarely ever have to draw from when I'm playing on songs. You know, sometimes a producer might say, oh, at the end we need an exciting fill, but it's never going to be they don't mean Dennis Chambers exciting. They sort of mean more kind of Keith Moon exciting, which is like, oh, we just need a bit more energy, which is a very, very different thing. So being asked to play on a prestigious Zildjian drum event, I'm like, wow, I'm gonna have to either find something that's back when I was 19 years old. I've got to try and fish that back out of my bag, or I kind of approach it as, you know, how I would do it. But there's a bit of a risk, you know, that whole drum fill with not doing a drum fill could have been received a very different way, but I'm very thankful it was received how I wanted it to be.
Oh yeah, and it was received amazingly, and we're gonna get to that. Like I'm dying to get to that, but I want to build up to it because, you know, it was for me like when you told me, I think you might have told me about it at PASIC. So we started hanging with each other when we met each other at PASIC, and then we started talking about this. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome. But you were like, I don't know if I should do it. I was like, you should definitely do it because I just got invited to do it too, and we'll hang, right? And to me, it was a no-brainer to have you on it because it's important for drummers, especially young drummers, to see that drumming is about playing the song too. Sure, chops and flash are great, but drummers who play the song are super important. And I think on a drumming event, it's great to have that represented, and in this case, represented by you. But you know, we've talked about this, like who's the most influential drummer of all time? I mean, of course, people are going to say Buddy Rich, but let's not forget Ringo Starr. I mean, so many drummers of our age and generation play the drums because of Ringo Starr. Sing me the fastest thing Ringo ever played. Shap boom 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 step at the bush bubble. Right? It's like there's no speed involved. It's all about playing for the song, and that's what you do so amazingly well. So to me, it was a no-brainer. It's like, gotta have Ash. It's like, come on.
Yeah, and actually what was great about Sput is that immediately he said, well, we're gonna have a singer, which is, I'm not sure about the previous Zildjian Live, but I'm not sure if there's any singers involved, but you know, it was like, okay, this is interesting straight away, because it's like all of a sudden there's a shift from the style of music that now there's a singer involved that will make the drummer hopefully play in a more, you know, song orientated way. As soon as you got, well, hopefully that's what good drummers do. When there's a singer involved, people play a little less, you know.
Yeah, and it's all about serving that song and serving the vocal and serving the singer, especially in what you do, which you're one of the greats. So my other questions are, did you get a chart, or did you make a chart? I don't think you had a chart when you played it, so did you memorize it? Like, what I want, because I want to know, and I want the viewers to know about the process. I want them to learn, like, what was your process? Like, how did you learn the tune?
So I just, the initial version, the sort of demo version, as it were, that Sput sent me, I just had that on repeat and would listen to it and come in my studio sometimes and just bring it up on the computer and play, even though there's a kind of drum part there. And I would just try and familiarize myself with the tune, with the song. And at that point, actually, the arrangement wasn't completely pinned down, but it's roughly where we wanted it to be. So I was sort of familiarizing myself with the sections and what am I going to play in this section. And then as we got, like I say, I think it was New Year's Eve, he dropped the actual arrangement, and then I could properly start going in for those last couple of weeks or whatever to really hone what I was going to play. Cool. And actually, straight away, I pulled out a load of bass drums that Sput had programmed and played and came up with a much simpler bass drum pattern that I thought would fit across all of it. Yes, so straight away I kind of made it it's even simpler than Sput had programmed.
So he had a lot more bass drum part in there, huh?
He had quite a few things going on that I couldn't play. I could try and nail those bass drums every time, but then the whole feel's going to go out the window. So for me, I'm like, okay, let's slim it down. And actually, I did what I would ordinarily do on a session, actually, which is, you know, figure out a part that is really comfortable for me and works for the song.
I'm interested, and that's why I keep asking you about the process. Like, you know, so when you were practicing it, did you physically sat down and would you do like maybe 3, 4, 5 passes in a row, or would you just do it once? You know, because I love practicing, and so I'm curious about your practicing process. Like, would you sit down and just like hit repeat and play it a few times?
Yeah, I would just literally play it more and more. And so the section, kind of the B section, as it were, Sput had programmed the sort of halftime shuffle tripletized. I can't remember if it was all hi-hats, but he'd implied that that whole thing going on. So I was like, okay, so that at that speed, I already knew it's okay. Me sat in my studio playing at that BPM, a halftime shuffle. It's really comfortable. I could do it all night. But I knew, as we all know, as soon as you get on the stand, it's louder. There's energy that you've not got when you're in your practice room. It's very, very different, and often can be a lot harder because you're playing harder. So something that's really fast that you can play very simply in your room on your own, when you're on the bandstand or in a studio like that with other musicians and there's audience and stuff, it can be and I had that in mind. So the halftime shuffle bit, I worked on quite a bit to make sure that I could handle it, you know.
So Ash, I know that the halftime shuffle is one of your favorite grooves, and we talked about it before. That I think you said you were 14 when you started working on it, when you decided like this is one of your favorite grooves. So my question, you know, to benefit some of the viewers watching, and for any of y'all who are watching and are just like, yeah, that's cool, it's a backbeat groove. The halftime shuffle, I want everyone to understand, it is a very intricate, challenging groove to get all those little pieces to fit together. And Ash makes it look easy, but it is not an easy groove to master, and you have mastered it. So I want to know, like, as you were growing up, like 14 years old, are there certain exercises or things that you came up with to work on to develop that? Because, you know, I just finished reading the Jeff Porcaro book, and there are some things that he talks about working on for it as well. So,
I mean, what's very different now, of course, now people can immediately see the transcription, you know, and what in 1984 in England, when I heard Rosanna, I'm like, what's he playing? Like, what is that? And I think even my drum teacher at the time couldn't really show me. You know, it was like the drum teacher at the time, it was well advanced, even for the guy that was teaching me. So I was like, so there's a lot of mystery for a while of like, is it all hi-hat? Is it open-handed? Because obviously I can't see him. I only heard this tune. So is he playing it like this? You know, how's he playing it? So it was really ambiguous to start with. And eventually someone showed me a modern drummer and someone had transcribed it. I was like, oh, okay, he's doing that, you know. And my sort of young teenage self was like, wow, so like you play the bit that the juicy bit is going on with the left hand. And then it was like, okay, but why when I play it, it sounds like a cow that's got that's slightly handcuffed. And when I hear someone like when Jeff was playing it, it's something you said last time, actually, Stanton, on this show, where the way you feel halftime shuffle is you feel about the fundamentals of the groove, and that's, I think that Jeff, if only he was around, we could ask him, but it's probably documented somewhere that that this is the way you looked at it. But when I play it now, I just hear boom, gat, boom, 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 gat, boom, gat. I don't. Obviously, I'm not going zigga digga 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 digga, or you go nuts, you know. So I'm just thinking about the fundamentals of the groove, and I guess what you're suggesting is, how do you get to that point where you can play the sort of engine room bit of it so smoothly that you don't have to worry. And I guess I just practiced and practiced and practiced like a lunatic.
Yeah, because a lot of, I gotta jump in for a second. A lot of that feel comes from the dynamics of each limb too.
It's pretty universal that the grace note, you have to try and play that as quietly as possible. And of course, what naturally happens as you speed up, most people play it harder, and like you just suggested, Joe, then it's the same velocity. When they're all going digga 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 digga, it doesn't sound like you want it to feel actually. So yeah, a big key for the practice is keeping that grace note as quiet as possible. And another one, which I think all drummers always find difficult, you've got to play it slowly. You've got to stay. You've got to stay there a slower than you think tempo, really. So what I mean is, you need to, if you think you can play it faster, don't. Stay back in school, as it were, a little longer. Yeah,
discipline yourself.
Yeah, and stay back there for a little while longer to and I think then that the terminology that we're edging towards, which is muscle memory. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that term, and it's certainly when you get to playing it at that speed that I'm playing on the track, you can't be thinking about the inner workings of the groove. You just have to play the feel, and that is the workings of that motion have to be ingrained, and that is a muscle memory thing.
Yeah, and just to interject, for viewers, especially some of the younger viewers, what Ash is saying, practicing it slowly, making sure that the hi-hat and the snare drum, that inner beat in the snare drum is not louder than the hi-hat. It's got to be equal or lesser volume.
Yeah, I can play. Because I've got my rigs running.
Yeah, dude, please.
I just have to turn my back to you guys here, if I can see you here. Yeah, so keeping that grace note really low. And of course, we all want to get to and do. It's a kind of relatively boring exercise at that speed, but if you can teach your muscles in a way to just be able to get to that place dynamically, that when it speeds up, it'll feel a damn sight smoother.
Yeah, and that's it, man. That's I think that's so important for people to understand, that you have to play it slow. And the purpose for that is that you're working out all of the little wiggles and all of the little interference, and you're smoothing all that out. And that's got to be smooth before you bring it up to speed.
Absolutely. And you know, just I can't emphasize it enough, really, that whole, it's being able to play it slowly. It's like everything for me, really. Like if you're working on a lick, on a new, you know, a gad fill or anything that you're working out, if you can nail it really musically at a low volume and a low speed, when you get up there, it's going to be better, without question.
Yep, it's ironing out all the kinks before you start accelerating and bringing it up to tempo.
There's a couple of little things. So you know the on the grace note, there's that whole thing when you start getting to feel comfortable playing that, you can then experiment with a couple of things in the middle. And the one that I play on that you can, hopefully it's in the transcription, but it is the diddle in between. So. You know, that whole diddling it's cool.
I know I'm gonna let you talk about this, but you told me that the tempo on the demo was pretty quick to get all these notes in, and then I want you to tell the story about you asked it to come back, but then talk about it. What happened?
Yes, so, well, when we did the little, as you know, when we have a little run through with the band before the cameras are rolling, just to check the sound and to check the cameras, etc. And when we played it through, I kind of warmed up, but I played it through and I was like, man, this is actually the same thing that I just talked about. Actually, I played it a lot in here, but then playing it with a band, I'm like, well, okay, this is louder. There's a lot more energy going on. And I just said to Sput, is there any way we can bring it back a few BPM? And he's like, yeah, sure. You know, I was like, 5 or 10 BPM. Could you bring it back? He's like, yeah. And we gave it a go, a little slower. And I was like, oh yeah, that's really great. Thanks, Sput. That's really cool. Then we came to the, we came to recording. And I only did 2 takes. We did, because you do a practice take and then you do your take, and then I think you do another 1 or 2 maybe. So I'd done a practice take, and I'm like, oh, okay, that still feels a little quick, but maybe that's just nerves. I'm not sure. Let that one go. Then I did my take, and I was like, the tempo's the same. and I went in. And I when we finished, I went into the control room and looked at the Pro Tools, and the BPM was the same as the demo. I was like, okay, so he hadn't changed it. And mainly, I think probably in respect to Sput is because he felt that tempo was the best place for the song, and I've got to man up and play it properly.
Yeah, and you did, and just to put it out there for the people watching. And that's why you practice it slow for years and years and years and years, so that when you get to this position and the tune is actually a little quicker, then you might feel comfortable. You still pulled it off, and you pulled it off flawlessly. But that wouldn't have happened without all those years and years of slow motion practice.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, slow motion practice. So I guess that's what it's called. Is that what you call it?
That's what I call it.
Yeah, your school. Yeah, I mean that's. I will borrow that the next time I'm explaining it.
I liken it to a car, or think about a finely tuned sports car or a race car. If you're in the pit and you don't tighten up all those wheels, you start pulling off, and one of those wheels is wobbly. When you're taking off slow, what do you think is going to happen once you start going faster? That wheel's going to come right off. You got to make sure it's all tight, slow when you're pulling off. Then you can gradually accelerate. But it's got to be together, tight, and holding its own in slow mode.
You should get into this teaching thing, Stanton. You've got a really good.
So Ash, yeah, those triplets where you're playing the shuffle rhythm on the hi-hat and the snare in between on the let of the triplet, as you increase the tempo on that, it looks to me when I watch you do it like you might be modifying your motion. You might be modifying your wrist and your finger motion. Can you talk about that so the viewers can see?
Sure. So I'll turn back around this way and the cameras can catch me.
Cool.
But at a slower tempo, it could be all wrist. But as soon as you start getting up to tempo, you know that you're obviously familiar with the pulled doubles where the fingers pull in. So it's kind of like a swung pulled double is what I call it. That's what I do.
Man. Yes.
And then when you go to the ride, it's the same thing, right? You don't change anything.
Exactly.
That's awesome, man. And so I have a question for you. When you play the backbeat, sometimes Porcaro will play the second note after the backbeat. It sounds to, and you and I have had this discussion, it sounds to me on the recording of Rosanna and then also on the isolated drum tracks, it sounds to me like he's not doing that. Like it's just a solid backbeat. That, right? So are you doing that? Are you doing that most of the time?
Yeah, I do. And I also do that little turnaround too that Jeff does. You know, sometimes you'll do it at the end of the bar where it's the last two beats of the triplet on snare. So like this. So I think I pretty much do play. And then I also do the little turnaround, which he does. So yeah, and I think even at that speed of the track, I think I am doing the grace note after the backbeat. Wow. I've got into the habit of doing it, and I don't know. The Jeff thing. I wonder if he's doing it. It's just he's playing that grace note so quietly.
Yeah, well, that's impressive. I mean, to get all of that together, you know, just so the people watching can know, man. That's a lot of moving parts, and you execute all of that masterfully.
Hey, Ash, you know how a lot of the jazz guys they'll omit the skip beat, you know, once they start going real quick. How often do you do that, or do you do that in this kind of a beat? Do you ever omit the skip beat, and why would you do it?
Well, yeah. So, in fact, on the tune, on my Zildjian Live tune. The verse, I'm not playing the grace note.
Yeah.
And then I just bring that grace note into the chorus or the B, you know, the B section. You know, and if you think about the go-go beats, they're not playing the grace note every time, right, Stanton? I mean, sometimes a grace note will be thrown in. So it's like a broken down shuffle groove.
Now, do you do it for just because of the feel of it, or is there a like the tempo, or is it like what makes you decide to do that?
It's just the feel. I mean, and it empties the groove out.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean, it makes it a much simpler groove. Hence, I did it I didn't do the grace note in the verses.
So by the grace note, do you mean the let of the triplet, the middle triplet?
The middle, yeah. I think that's what Joe means, right?
Yeah.
So, so the verse for me is this. And then I went to the chorus. It was just a feel thing, you know, to empty the verse out. Really, that's why I thought if I shuffled through the whole thing, firstly, my arm's going to drop off. and secondly, it's going to sound too busy.
So, and two, I think what's important to note, and we could really tell this when you broke it down, is that you're playing those triplets as tick to tick to tick to tick. You're intentionally putting an accent on the eighth notes, right? 1 and 2 and tick to tick to tick, as opposed to tick to tick to tick to tick. You're really putting an emphasis of tick to tick to tick to tick, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's important for the viewers to know that for this thing to feel right, it's good to get that first triplet tick to tick to tick to tick. Because if you've got to get it, to get it, to get it, to get, if you've got that left hand jumping out, then that's when it starts to sound like a cow. Would you say a cow with a what?
Cow handcuffed. But yeah, you know, so you know, so you know what we were talking about before. What now when I feel when I listen to that, if I'm feeling a groove like that, it's this. You know, it's actually, I'm not really thinking about, you know, it's, you know.
Yep, and that's so important to mention, because when I try to present this to people, I'm like, your head's got to bob to boosh, ga, boom, boom, ga, go, boom, ga, go, boom, ga, dig, doom, doom. All those other little intricacies don't mean anything if that boom, ga, boom, boom, ga, unless that's making heads bob.
Yeah, the fundamental of the groove.
Yes, yeah. Everything else is just icing.
One of my thoughts was, you know, most people, when you get them out of the audience, or if you're doing a drum class and you get someone up to play, most of the time they'll play a straight eighth note, 16th, straight 16s. Very rarely will people play a swung groove, you know, a shuffle groove or a go-go or something that's from your neck of the woods, you know, like a sort of New Orleans swing type feel. Most people play straight. And most people are comfortable at that end of the spectrum. My theory has always been, if you can develop the other end, and get and the halftime shuffle in particular is a really good, perfect example of a fully tripletized feel. If you can get that down and make it feel a little bit more comfortable, then all of the magic stuff that happens in the middle, that's slightly swung, and all the really cool things are going to feel better. That's my thought.
Yes.
You know?
And
so I encourage people to work on shuffle feels and halftime in particular, because it's going to benefit all of your playing.
That's really well said, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I've been feeling that way for a long time. Like I think I was, you know, younger, maybe 18, 19, somewhere around there, where I started to realize, well, yeah, I'm from New Orleans, but maybe I'm biased, but it's the funkiest, groovingest stuff of all time. So even though if I'm from here, if I put my focus on that, well, then I'll be able to make the straighter stuff feel better. I'll be able to make the swung stuff feel better. If I live somewhere in between here, then I just dip over here into the swing stuff. I dip over here into the more straight stuff. So I realized that at a young age, and spent a lot of time working on that gray area in between. And I think that it has helped. And I'm just agreeing with you and reinforcing what you just said, that spending some time with that, spending some time on the triplet end of the spectrum, spending some time in between, as well as all the straight stuff, is going to help your feel, and helping your feel is going to make you more employable.
Yeah, exactly. And interestingly, if you think about, you could argue, oh, you know, this whole straight swing thing, it's got no relevance in today's music. And I think if you start delving into hip hop, it's alive and well.
It's alive and well.
The same thing's going on. You know, people are experimenting with swing and straight at the same time. It's like Chuck Berry is alive and well still. You know, it's like that whole swing and straight at the same time is happening in modern music right now. So it is relevant. So you might think, oh man, what do I need to learn the halftime shuffle for? it's not going to benefit me playing in a hip hop band in Philadelphia, but I think it probably will.
It probably, I mean, check it out. You mentioned Chuck Berry, and of course Earl Palmer playing with Fats Domino, Little Richard, and all the stuff that came out of New Orleans. And so Earl Palmer was taking a shuffle and then straightening it out, right? You know, I started hinting at that, at the Dilla thing that everybody loves so much. It's not straight eighth notes.
You know where you can really hear a lot of that on the Zildjian Underground stuff. I don't know if you guys.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. And that is basically, that's taking what Earl Palmer was doing with eighth notes, bringing it down to a slower tempo for funk, and then you know, it's the same stuff we've been doing in New Orleans forever. Now they call it drunken drumming. It's like it's that in between straight and swing and messing with, and it's coming from Jay Dilla messing with the areas of quantization. Right? So not quantizing it, but putting it in between, playing the machines as a human and then not quantizing them.
And it's absolutely everywhere if you think about it. You know, the whole Chuck Berry thing, and rock and roll, like you say, Little Richard. It's where guys were like you know, you could argue that some of those guys were trying to play straight, but they couldn't. So you got the bass player who can't play straight, you know, but the drummer's like, oh yeah, I've got it together. So you got those two doing that. But you mentioned him earlier, Ringo. If you think about it, you know, Ringo had the straight and swing thing completely down in the Beatles.
Yeah.
He'd play a straight groove and then he'd do a swung fill. And you're like, wow, that's cool as shit.
Yeah. And
it still is.
And it still is. And it's coming from Earl Palmer, right? I mean, Earl Palmer with Little Richard, Fats Domino, all that stuff. Earl would play in between straight and swing and play one fill triplets, one fill 16th notes.
Properly messing with it.
Properly. So Ash, when you're playing the triplets and you're accenting those eighth notes, tick, 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 are you playing the edge of the hi-hat with the shoulder? Are you coming down like that to the edge, or is it all, it's just an accent but it's still with the tip?
It's still it's the tip, and it's like, yeah, so
okay.
It's not that. So
It's not.
On top all the time, which people have noticed that and gone, oh wow, you just play on top with the tip. It's like, yeah. Again, I find it a cleaner sound when it's recorded like that. Rather than, so I'm coming down. I mean, that's kind of cool, but there's quite a lot more motion involved to get the shoulder around like that.
Yeah, man, I that's beautiful. I learned a good bit. I'm gonna be shedding my halftime shuffle when we get done.
But wait, when you do that, and you suppose you do an open hi-hat, don't you do lay into it a little bit on the shoulder when you do that, right?
I think it still might be tip. Let's have a quick look.
Oh, interesting.
This is good. This is the problem. I've got to the point where I just play the groove. I actually don't know. Yeah, it's still top.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah! I know everybody's dying to hear about, and I am dying to talk about your fill. And this is me interviewing you. Can I give you my perception of it? And then we'll ask you about, to me, what is so special about it, because we've talked about this, music is all, to me, is all about what you don't play is just as important as what you do play. And what we lose sight of is with music, we want to create tension and release and suspense and drama. And what you did, to me, was so brilliant because it creates suspense. It's like, oh, what's going to happen? It's like all the air in the room, just like, oh my God. You created so much tension with that. And then when you come in, it's so on the money and spot on. And it's one of my favorite moments of music that I've seen in a long time. Because, we got to talk about like, what are you going to do in that moment? And I was rooting for you. And it's like, when you did that, it was just like, is he gonna make it? It's like, oh my God, did you make it? It's like it was so beautiful and special. And every time I watch it, I'm just like, man, I'm so proud of that moment. Because I know you didn't have it planned, but you knew it had to be something. And what you did, it was just incredible.
Hey,
So-
let's watch it real quick before we get Ash's response.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's as we talked about in the days before Stan, it's like, and I've spoken to Dolbear about it, and I've probably even spoken to you, Joe, about it. I've been invited to play on a drum event, and like I've already suggested, it's like default playing a Zildjian Day or a any sort of drum event, you pull out your big guns and you find the chops that you had once as a kid or whatever, and that's kind of, even some of the most mature players in the world will do that, and I don't blame them. I personally haven't got those chops. I never really ever did. So I wondered, at this stage of my career and where I'm at in my life, I feel relatively happy and comfortable with where I've ended up as an older musician now. My journey, and I thought, well, what is it that I could personally get across to somebody younger or anybody really that's watching it, that is about my whole journey, and that space and leaving space and trying to be musical is the thing that I've held dear to me and my playing all my life. And I thought, well, let's try and do something like that. And then I thought, wouldn't it be great to do a fill where I don't really play much, but it can still create the tension of a fill like I've played loads, And we talked about it. It is definitely possible. And I remember seeing Steve Gadd playing with Eric Clapton, and he would ignore his two floor toms all evening. And then in a particular tune, it'd launch off your seat like it does and whack those floor toms that have been neglected all night. And oh my God, just one flam on those two floors at the Albert Hall just said so much. And me as a younger drummer watching that, I'm like, I wonder if I could get anywhere near that kind of idea where you don't play much, but it's a statement. And that's, I just had that sort of dialogue going around my mind for.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but the night before we were hanging out in the bar of all places, shocker. And we were talking about Gad and talking about Murata and how they do that.
Sure.
And
maybe that was part of it.
You captured the essence of, dude, you crushed it. I mean, that fill is every bit of the tension fill that you get, like, you're like, ah, like Stanton was saying there, like, you're like, ah, and then you hit it and you're like, how did he do that? Like, how?
Yeah, well, there's the other thing as well. If you look at, I actually don't know what I'm playing.
I've
do you know what I mean?
At it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where that's the beautiful part. And let me just say that you absolutely accomplished what you were seeking to do. And what makes it so special is because I know that you had an effect in mind, you had an emotion in mind, but note-wise, drumming-wise, you didn't have it planned. And yet you conveyed the emotion, the tension, the feeling that you were seeking out to do without pre-planning it. And that's what makes it so musical, so special, so spontaneous, so authentic. And if you would have practiced that and planned that out, it wouldn't have had the same.
I totally agree, because it would have sounded because I'm not playing very much. It would have sounded so contrived if I'd gone, okay, I'm going to go black or yeah. Okay. I mean, I know the fill now. I've watched it and people have tagged me in it so many times on social media. But I mean, if I'd written that fill out and practiced it, there's no way it would have sounded like that or felt like that. And if you look at my face, I don't know what I'm playing. I don't know what's coming next myself.
Yeah,
I just know that I've got to leave a gap somehow and create that thing. And luckily, I pulled it off.
You did. You pulled it off beautifully, man. And yeah, it's like I said, it's one of my favorite moments because we got to talk about it. I knew what you were concerned about. I knew the feeling, and I was just sitting there, being supportive. And when it happened, I was just like, he did it! He did it!
Actually, you jumped out of the seat.
I did, and it was involuntary. I didn't plan that, but it was like, it was like watching Evel Knievel take off, and it's like, oh my God, is he gonna make it? Is he gonna make it? And it's like time and space are suspended, and then you landed it, and it was just like, he made it. It was so great, man. And I knew in the moment it was gonna be a moment that people talked about, and it has been, and I couldn't be more happy for you and proud of you for not just the fill, but just the overall performance and knowing that how difficult that groove is to play, knowing that it was faster than you were really intending or comfortable with, and yet you just like the pro you are, you just nailed it, man. And I can't commend you enough on the performance. I mean, it's beautifully special.
Yeah. Well, thank you, dude. And I think actually Sput did me a favor when he kept the tempo where it was, because I think, getting back to what you said, if I practiced the fill, also if I'd have been maybe a little bit more comfortable playing the groove, maybe it wouldn't have felt like that. It would have felt a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he kept it where it was, because it kept me on my toes.
It's
the
flawless performance. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And the essence of Zildjian Live and all this was to bring everything back to music. Not just drumming, but music. And drumming has an important part in that. And I think each one of the songs that each guy did was perfect. Like Sput just nailed it for each person, their personality, and each person plays it to amazingly well, so that you really feel who that person is as a player. But you enjoy listening to the music. Like it's like the drumming doesn't get in the way; it enhances the music, which is what it's supposed to be about, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
and you crush it. You crush it, Ash.
Well, thank you, man, and thank you for asking me, Joe. And I'm sorry I took a while to say yeah.
You better never make me wait again.
Well, beautiful. Well, Ash, man, it's been so good talking to you about this. And, you know, I've been looking forward to this moment because we've talked about it ourselves, but I've been looking forward to putting it down for posterity, for other people to get a little inside look at what we talk about sometimes when we're having coffee or now FaceTiming each other and catching up and chatting. But I've learned so much from you, my man, through this process and through our friendship. And, you know, I thank you for all of your work, all of your knowledge, and being so open and generous with all of that, with all of us. And, you know, I thank you. I commend you on your performance. And, man, yes, indeed, I can't wait to see more from you as you continue to even, you know, as you said, even at the stage you're continuing to grow, man, and it's beautiful to watch.
Well, Stanton, thank you so much for that, and it's mutual, man. You know, since we met at PASIC, I felt, you know, what you hope for in your life as you go along. You hope to meet people. Well, you just hope that people are going to be how you want them to be. And when I met you, every box was ticked, and there was a couple of other boxes I didn't even realize were there. And I'm really thankful too for our friendship and being able to actually, you know, to go into an event like Zildjian Live, to be able to not be insular and just be, you know, stewing in your own juices, to actually be able to share that experience with somebody else who's going through the same thing. That was very, very cool, man, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm looking forward to more with you, and hopefully when this virus is gone away, I can actually get down to New Orleans and we can do something down there. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
See, this is what Zildjian's all about. Just matchmaking, man. We just bring people together that belong together.
That should be your new venture, man. You know, the Zildjian dating service. For
That's it. Yeah, romance.
You know, but Matt, thanks, Stanton, and yeah, it was a great experience, and I feel very proud to be a British drummer involved in a very, you know, obviously an American company, but an American culture of that. You know, we don't really do that sort of stuff here. So to be able to be involved in it and being a Brit and having a little chance to be part of it was fantastic, and I'm very thankful.
Well, all right, my man. Great to catch up with you, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you, Stanton.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you both as always, and
thanks for watching.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank y'all for watching.
All right. Until next time, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, indeed.